Fed Chairman Ben Bernanke, as you know, yesterday taking questions from reporters, said that it will take several years to get to a normal unemployment rate or a normal jobs market. For more, we're joined by Evercore Partners President and CEO Ralph Schlosstein. Ralph, great to see you in the studio here. What did you make of Bernanke's comments? He's basically charting out a very slow recovery. What's a normal jobs market to you?
Well, a normal jobs market is probably 5 to 6% unemployment. And, you know, full employment moves a little bit, but generally I think that's where most people would look at full employment. And, you know, I think what Bernanke is preparing the country for is that we're going to have a subpar in terms of growth recovery, and even worse, the amount of job creation that you would expect to be associated with that amount of growth is even less. So, you know, basically, if you look at where we are today, it took 20 years to get where we are of over-levering, and the over-leverage produced sort of a little bit extra in growth for 20 plus years. And now we're going through the process of delevering, and that's going to steal growth for a number of years.
But not 20, though.
Not 20. I don't think so. No. I mean, I think the resiliency of our economy is, you know, is greater than most people give it credit.
And how does that forecast, Ralph, inform your business then?
Well, I think first of all, a relatively slow growth but stable economy is good for the M&A business because most companies like to have high single-digit, low double-digit earnings growth. And in a world where, you know, real GDP is growing at 3%, let's say, plus or minus, and inflation is 1 to 2%, nominal GDP is growing at 4 to 5%. So that means the top line of corporate America, on average, is growing 3, 4, 5% a year. So it's very hard to get 10% earnings growth out of 5% revenue growth, unless you're you know, combining businesses, taking out costs, and using that for 2, 3, 4 years to get double-digit earnings growth. And that in itself, obviously, doesn't bode hugely well for employment.
No, it doesn't.
Because it means that some of the profit growth in this country is going to come from increased productivity.
I was going to say, squeezing more out of your workers rather than hiring. You know, we've talked to several people, you know, lots of CEOs over the last several months, you know, who say that what they're looking for is emerging markets or overseas growth to offset what's going on here. I wonder, though, in your view, how much that game has changed, though, with what we've seen in Egypt.
Well, I think that, you know, Egypt has had a remarkably small effect on the capital markets and a remarkably small effect on global economic activity. Now, it remains to be seen how the transition occurs, but if it occurs as it is now, I don't believe that will in any way reduce the ardor of large corporations in the developed world, U.S., Europe, Japan, to expand into the growth markets. I think everybody understands that volatility is greater in those markets, and that it's not a straight line up. But if you start where we are today and look 10 years forward, that's where the growth is going to be, and you have to be there.
All right, so those plans would stay intact for anybody, including your business, to be overseas or in these emerging markets. But for you, Ralph, I'm just curious, you know, as a business leader here in the United States, when you're watching what's going on in Egypt, and if you put your business leader hat on, what has been most disturbing to you?
Well, I think the most disturbing thing is that it's how challenging it is to get right the balance between supporting leaders who have been friendly to the United States and friendly to the interests of the West, but at the same time who hold office by means that aren't necessarily consistent with what we consider to be free electoral processes.